208. That's what. Okay, come. I'm in already.
Hi there.
Hi, Greg.
Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes. You don't want to. Can you put your loud and clear? Can you put? Is it possible to put your screen on? Like you have to switch the screen around to you. You know how you change the.
What do you mean?
Because I
Like
can't.
that? So what have I got to do?
Like you're looking at your screen. I can hear you clearly.
Yeah.
There's an icon somewhere there where you can, like the camera where you can like you go to like a video and you can switch the screen towards you or turn on your screen or something like that.
There's an icon in the top right hand corner, like a circle and then like a sausage underneath it.
Yeah, I think that's it. Just click onto that. What does it say?
Now it's gone into the middle of my screen.
So can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you. Now you're minimized at the top right hand corner of my phone.
Oh, I think that's sharing, but you probably have to go to like where your camera is. Does it anyway? Just tap on your phone and see where, like it does it say like a camera, like it looks like a camera, like a video camera. Oh, yeah. Ask to start video. Like I'm requesting to you. Can you see my request?
The host has asked you to start and I press OK.
Yeah. Yeah,
You see
right.
me
I
now?
can see you. Good morning.
See what I'm wearing?
You look very nice. Thank you.
Yeah, I had my shampoo and got all ready.
Okay. Lovely. Shall we start?
Let's get into it.
Okay. Good morning, Greg, and good morning to TS 108 and TS 29 students. Thank you. We are very privileged to have our guest speaker or professor for the day. And Greg will be talking about his career and reflecting on many of your projects. I won't take further to do, but I'll hand over to Greg to introduce himself, and then we'll start with the rest of the presentation. Thank you, Greg. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Happy, and Bulla to all you students. You're very lucky that you're getting a great education. I've seen young students start at USP, and by the time they graduate, they're fine young graduates. So I started in the tourism industry when I was 19. I came back from Australia where I'd been to high school, and tourism was just underway with new hotels starting on Beachcomber and Castaway. And there was a couple of guys a little bit older than me that had won scholarships to go to Hawaii to learn about tourism. So that sounded pretty exciting to me. So I told my parents I'd like to get a start in the hotels. Unfortunately, my father had played golf with an ex-policeman who was running the Macambo Hotel in Nandi, which is now called the Novotel. So that's where I got my start. And we had a lot of crews staying there from different airlines. Some of them you've never heard of now because they've gone out of business, like Pan Am, BOAC, which was an English airline. There was Canadian Pacific from Canada. Air India used to fly here. So I thought this was exciting to be able to travel with tourism. So I thought I'm in the right industry here. So I started as a receptionist, and I'd come straight out of high school. I didn't go to university, and I just gained experience. And luckily, they moved me around, so I became like a trainee manager. And that's one of the wonderful things about hotel business and tourism. It's the variety of the things that you can learn when you're getting experience. And just like you're young, when I was young, I learned pretty quickly that you want to learn off all the experienced people. Anyone with hair color like mine, gray hair, you've had a lot of experiences, and you can learn off people. That's why parents like their children to be with their grandchildren, so they can learn the wisdom of many years of working and living. So fortunately, I joined a good company it was called Travelodge in those days, and they had hotels in Australia and in this part of the world. And in my early years, in my early 20s, there are 5 Travelodges in Fiji. So I asked if I could join them, and they wanted me. So they shot me off to Australia, where I went to cooking school and I went to college, and I learned all about running hotels. So that gave me my start. And when I came back, because there wasn't a lot of experienced people or well-trained, I got a high-level job very fast. I was number 2 in a hotel in Nandi, the Travelodge Nandi. So after being transferred to Pacific Harbour, where they had another hotel, there was a new company that arrived in Fiji called the Regent. And they were the first real 5-star hotel to come to Fiji. So you always want to work for high-level hotels, because if you learn their policies and procedures and the way they do business, this helps you throughout your career, because you've got high standards, and you're working with people who are very, very talented and good at their job. So it's another thing I'd encourage all of you, is to work for good companies when you get the opportunity. So I worked for Regent for 15 years. So it was the longest stint I had in my whole career with any one company. And I'm very grateful that I worked for them, because that's what helped me be sought after by other companies, because they wanted people who had good skills. So I worked in the hotel business for 40 years. And I worked, I was a bit like a homing pigeon. I would leave Fiji, go overseas, get some experience, and then come back again. And I was lucky enough that I worked in New Zealand, Australia, Taiwan, and Thailand. And then I came back to Fiji. So after about 36, 37 years of doing tough hotel jobs, I thought that I would get into the sporting side of hotels. So I ran golf courses in Australia and Fiji that were associated with resorts, because there are a lot of resorts in the world that have other facilities like tennis courts, swimming courts, swimming pools, and golf clubs. So after about 40 years, I was approached by one of Happy's co-lecturers, a lady called Dawn Gibson, to see if I'd be interested in joining the university and being involved in a new division called the Hotel and Tourism Hospitality side. And that's where I met Happy. And both he and I were working in that area. And basically, I was trying to help Fijians and Pacific Islanders that were lucky enough to come to USP to come and learn from me and learn from the textbooks and all the readings that are out there about hotels and tourism, so that they themselves could become a hotelier and be a successful one and have a good career. And the big message I want all of you to know is that it doesn't matter what you've been and where you come from. Every one of you can become a general manager of a hotel or a tourism organization if you've got the drive. If you want it and you work hard and you study, nothing will stop you from achieving it. So that's the introduction on me. Happy?
Thank you, Greg. That was That was amazing, and I'd like how you put in, some advice for the students. I'm sure they'll be really blown away by your introduction and inspired very much. So my next question is, what are some important skills? And I know there's many, but what are would you like to highlight that they should develop whilst they're at university and as they're going through their career? Because all these are tourism and hospitality management students. Some of them are doing it as an elective, but even so, what are some generic but very, very important skills that you would advise them to develop throughout their career?
All right. Well, I think if you want to be in the tourism industry, I think you have to want to like to interact with people. Um, I was fairly shy in my early years, and lucky my company invested in me and they sent me to a Dale Carnegie course where you learn some tricks on how to remember people's names. And you got experience at standing up in front of people and speaking and presenting, just like you do at university. I think it's a wonderful thing that students get a experience in, is presenting as a team, because in the hotel business, you have to be part of a team as well. You're not the Lone Ranger. You rely on everyone doing their job, just like in a football team, so that everyone passes on their part of the game for you to so that you can have a successful hotel running. Good education. What a good education does, like all of your students, is that it makes it easier for you to learn. If I'd been a university graduate and gone to uni straight after school, I think I would have climbed to become a general manager in a hotel faster. So definitely education is critical. I'm proof that you don't have to be highly educated to do okay. But I'm telling you that it would have been much easier in my career if I'd had a degree. Because after going to university as a lecturer at the end of my career, I realized what you could learn and how it develops young people so well and makes you a good all-rounder, basically, because all of your subjects and all of the field trips you do and all the guest speakers you have, you're gathering information, and if you're good at note-taking, you can sort them out so that you can always go back to them. Like I learned at university to make folders, and instead of just having files on a shelf in my office, I learned that you can do folders and have them on your desktop and in your computer so that you can go and find them. So one of my hints to all of you students is that you make records and you take photographs of things that you can file away, so that if you need to go and use that information in the future, it's easy to find. Because you're going to learn about flowers, you're going to learn about music, you're going to learn about finance, construction, garbage. If you go and work in a resort hotel, you have to make your electricity yourself normally. You have to make your own water, and you have to handle your own garbage and all your waste. So it's a different operation if you're remote, like hotels on islands are. It's the same as like living in a city where you flick a switch versus out on the islands or in remote areas where you have to have kerosene lamps, and some people cut firewood to cook with. They're not close to having gas available. One of the skills that education brings you to is that you learn how to do research, so that it's easy for you to go and find information. And what's wonderful about the time that all of you students are living in now is that you can go onto YouTube and learn how to cook scrambled eggs Japanese style if you want to, or you can go and learn to make paella, which is a Spanish seafood dish with rice. So the information that's out there is fantastic. And so that's why people are learning so much. The other great skill that will help you throughout your career is learning from someone who's smart at university how to teach you how to make a business plan, so that after working for you, other people, eventually you might want to go into business yourself. So if you learn how to do a business plan properly, and senior lecturer Dawn Gibson, she was very good at that, and she taught me some good skills and gave me some good material that I could file away to help myself. Hospitality is basically just being friendly and welcoming. So if you like that, and it's one of the reasons Pacific Islanders are so good at hospitality, is that you are naturally friendly, and you learn in your culture that you welcome people who aren't necessarily related to you. And if they're distant related to you, you treat them like a brother or a sister. And that's one of the wonderful things about Pacific Islanders. And that's why you do so well in this tourism industry. And the good thing about tourism is it's diverse like a hotel. You've got transport, you've got trekking, you've got ecotourism, you've got sports tourism. So you've got plenty of things to pick from. So you've got a great variety, and all of us like in our life, we like things that are interesting, and it helps us become creative, because we hear of something and we think of what we can do to be successful. So in hotels, you tend to work 2 or 3 years and then you move to another one. And the reason you do that is that you want to keep gaining experience, because hotels, the way they're run in Fiji or the Pacific, are different to a city hotel. You go to Las Vegas, you've got a 5,000 room hotel. Just imagine just handling the sheets and the towels and getting into the room in a hotel like that. Las Vegas is famous for entertainment. There's the gambling side. Luckily, no casinos have come to Fiji yet, and there's not many in the Pacific, but that in itself is a diverse hotel operation. The other skill is basically just getting experience. If you'd like to become a hotel manager and be the one that runs the team, then you'd want to try and learn the 2 main operating departments, which is rooms division. And rooms division takes in all the areas like reception, reservations, engineering, housekeeping, landscaping. Then the other major operating division is called food and beverage. So you're talking about chefs, bartenders, conventions and catering people, wedding specialists. And then these 2 big main operating departments in the hotel, they're backed up by the 3 other support divisions. HR, human resources. Some people call it personnel. And the names keep changing as, there's progress in working out exactly what a department should be doing for finding talented people and developing them. With any business, and especially in the hotels, you've got to have a great finance department. And so you're supported by your finance department that makes sure that you're making money so you can buy all the things you need, that you're not wasting money. And then you've got sales and marketing. It's no use having a great operation if you can't promote it and you can't get the business in to use your great operation. Some of the characteristics, Happy, I think, for students are that, just like to be a good student, you have to work hard. And then in the hotel business, if you don't work hard and you don't work along with other people, then you won't get a good result. You want to become a very good all-rounder. And even students, I think, should become good all-rounders while you're there, because you've got a chance to learn from all those interesting people that are very talented and bright. If I was a person from the West, like Australia or New Zealand, and I came to USP, I'd like to learn from Islanders how to dance, how to sing, how to weave, and do all of these sort of things. So multi-skilling set you up too to be able to run a hotel. Like right now, expatriates aren't needed in hotels in Fiji because all the hotels are closed. So this is when a local person could be minding the hotel, and they'll be using all of the skills they've learned over the years at university and in their hotel on how to make sure that all the basics are covered while the hotel's shut. And then once tourism returns, then they've got the skills to be able to crank it all back up, but they'll be able to get help from the owners and the general manager as well. So I think they're all the sort of skills and characteristics that students should have. Happy?
Thank you, Greg. Thank you so much, and highlighting all the because TS108, the various departments you covered, and you highlighted on food and beverage for the food and beverage students, and some very important aspects. I liked how you um, reiterated to the students. Now, I know most of the students don't know, and I know that you co-wrote, authored a book with Colin Chung, who is a celebrity chef who resides in New Zealand. Can you tell us a little bit? We can actually combine these two questions. Tell us a little bit about Kana Vinaka. What is the book about? And it actually ties in with the other question, which was one of the things that you always advocate is eat local and farm to table, and that's you're one of the champions of promoting those two things. And with TS 209, it's one of the themes of their project, whereby they had to localize the menu. So that's really a mouthful. So if you can tell us your journey for the book
Yeah,
and
sure.
also farm to
All
table.
right. Well, I bought a copy of the book here to show everyone what the cover looks like.
And I think they sell copies at USP Library. Do they?
Yes, USP stocked the book, and like Kana Vinaka, it was easy for me to come up with a name, but my longtime friend, who's one of the best cooks I know, and who's brilliant at cooking local food, I mean island food, is a Hawaiian gentleman called Colin Chung, and he wrote Kana Vinaka. And I asked him to write it because he had all these brilliant recipes he'd learned from his grandmother and his mother. And I said, you've got to write them down. And he, like me, believed that we should be substituting food that is imported with local food. And when I was working in the hotels and resorts around Fiji, I always tried to get the available areas to be planted. Because if you're in a remote area like Tokariki Island and you've got land there, by the time you get your food to come from the mainland, it's all wilted, it's half dead. And if you can go and pick it and wash it and then cook with it right from the garden next to the resort, it's going to be in much better shape. It's not going to cost you, nearly what it would cost to buy it from the market. And local food is way cheaper than imported food. And so basically, the idea with Kana Vinaka was through cooking, if we taught not only the local cooks how to use their food that they are used to growing and eating themselves, but we taught the expatriate chefs how to use this local food in a way that tourists would like it, then that would help the farmers of Fiji. So, 10 years ago, 80% of all of the food used in a hotel was imported. So Colin and I wanted to see what we could do to help, especially this country, Fiji, to reduce its imports. And by doing that, you help the farmers straight away. Because instead of making a rich potato farmer in New Zealand rich, or a Chinese merchant in Melbourne who can find apples and pears and broccoli and cauliflower and all these things, and you can replace them with the same, similar things here or even the same, then that would be great, because it helps the economy, and the people who grow these things get to eat better things themselves. So the diet of Fijians can improve by growing all these different things that used to be imported. So that's why nowadays, in this time of year when it's cold, very soon you'll see cauliflower being sold on the side of the road. There are some fruits that have been introduced in the last 5 to 10 years that were never here. The Taiwanese brought in this big whitish colored guava, and farmers get very good money for it. So the variety of fruit, once that increases, then that makes the tourists happier when they're here, because they get to eat not just pineapple, pawpaw, and mango. They're now able to eat dragon fruit, different kinds of passion fruit. So that's what's good about bringing in things that work well in countries similar to Fiji, like Thailand, where I worked for a while, is exactly above the equator that we're below it. So things that can grow there can grow here. So it's just a matter of getting some of these things approved by biosecurity, and then that they can be bought in here. So the good thing about Kanawinaka is that, you know, we aren't well known for our beef in Fiji and the Pacific, but if you know how to cook beef that is regarded as being a little bit tough, by knowing how to handle it properly, you can still make it taste beautiful.
Like to tenderize it, yeah.
Exactly. So like you can marinate it, and then you can bake it off in the oven, and then you can put it in a pot with water and let it simmer slowly to tenderize it and make it tasty. You know, tourists think that Fiji and the Pacific should have great seafood, and you know, Kanawinaka's helped introduce things like kai, which you'd never ever see on a menu in the past. It's only the last few years where other good local chefs like Lance Sito, Janie Lilo, and you know, a lot of other good guys that we mentioned in the book. These people are also been overseas, and then they come back, and then they're experimenting with things that grow here that they've seen something similar used overseas in France or England or America or Australia, and they bring those learnings back here as well. Herbs, one of the good things in Nadi, there's a company growing basil, which is a Western herb, but because the season here is perfect now and they can't grow it in New Zealand, they're growing basil and exporting it to New Zealand. So that's what happens. That's what follows things like Kanawinaka, is coming up with things that where you can actually get an export income. I'm sure Fiji could do a lot of value-added things in the future. So hopefully the students that you're teaching, happy that, you know, will learn. And that's where the research comes in, and YouTube and all these other things, is they can learn how to dry fruit. They can learn how to make jams, chutneys, because other countries like Hawaii is exporting guava jelly. So why can't Fiji do guava jelly?
Exactly, yeah.
And see, the good thing about local food, it tastes better. Like we've got great soil in Fiji, volcanic soil. We've got good rain, good sunshine. So the coconuts taste better here than the ones I tasted in Thailand. But I've heard of millionaires in Thailand from growing coconuts. In Fiji, you hardly ever see plantations of any fruit. In Sabu Sabu, there's plantations of coconut. But to me, I think every bare bit of land that just has grass growing on it and gets burnt every year, they should be growing coconuts at least. And then they can run sheep or cattle in between the trees, and free-range chickens and all these other things to make their diet better. And then they can sell these things to the tourist operators when all the tourists come back. So that's a little bit about Kana Vanaka and eating local, Happy.
Thank you, Greg. So Greg, towards the last one, what I wanted you to like just to wrap it up, um, because I know it's very challenging. This is quite an important one, and students would really like to hear from your opinion, like in terms of advice you'd give them, because most of them signed up for tourism and hospitality, and obviously you're aware that it's the most affected industry, with like for example, like in Nandi, most of them are halfway through their degrees, and some of them going through anxiety in terms of what jobs they can do. Um, like, what advice would you give them now as they're in their first and some are in their second year? Some of them are still passionate of what they want to do. Like, how do they prepare themselves when it opens, or what are other opportunities that they could tap into, so that when they graduate, even though with a degree in hospitality or in hotel management, they can start. What are options do they have and opportunities, and what are some challenges? How can they overcome that? What advice? Because you come out from a very hospitality background, so what advice would you give them to prepare them for this unprecedented time?
All right. Well, this sort of lockdown period we're in right now, and a lot of people in the world have experienced, it sure is a tough one. And I just feel grateful that I finished my career, and I feel sorry for the ones who've got mortgages to pay and things like that. So the advice that I would give, Happy, is it's the same as I used to give the students when I was there at USP lecturing, and the sort of advice I'd give my hotel workers when I was in a senior role in a hotel was that you should be using what you're blessed with. And some people are lucky enough to have land. And like I walk around Nandi, I drive around the country, and I see all this bare land that's available. Like you take Suva, for example. There are people that own land that have never developed or built anything on it. So people should be going to the owners and asking if they could grow things in that bare land. Like here am I, retired. I'm growing pawpaw, cabbage, lettuce, tomatoes, and it doesn't mean that I don't go to the market, but just by learning how to grow things is another skill that people should have, and they can use it for the rest of their life. Like my father called, after working till he was 62 in Vatakola in the gold mines, when he went back to Australia to retire, he was working 4 to 6 hours in his garden every day. So it meant it kept his costs down, so he didn't eat up all his retirement money. It gave him exercise. He called gardening constructive exercise.
Mm.
Not only older people like seeing things grow, but everyone I've met, youngsters, students, there's something nice about putting something in the ground and seeing it grow. So as a basic thing, I would encourage everyone to get into gardening. And when hotel business comes back and students get out into the industry, you just continue that in your spare time, because it keeps your costs down. So you subsidize, you don't want to spend all the money you make on food and other things.
Mm.
You want to keep your costs of food down if you're blessed with having land. And if you don't have land, then you go and make a deal with someone that has got land and do a 50-50 deal where you tell them, let me use your land, I'll give you 50% after all the expenses of the profit, and at least we both do well.
Mm.
And you can be doing other things, and I'm making 50% of something for you, and then I can survive as well. Like I talked about multi-skilling earlier on in the hotel business, because running a hotel is like running a town. I think a hotel manager makes a very good mayor of a town,
Mm.
because you're learning in some hotels, you've got nurses, you've got rubbish experts. In a resort, you've got marine experts, like people that go to marine study school.
Yeah.
And like the lower campus at USP there. So the idea is to get a lot of skills and diversify. Like if you know how to play guitar, you can teach music to someone who wants to learn how to play guitar right now. So there's an opportunity.
Yeah.
If you're good at art, you can be teaching youngsters and other people how to paint pictures, or if you're good at photography, you can make money. Cooking. Every kid now who's not at university or school, they should be in the kitchen with their parents learning how to cook, because you have to eat for the rest of your life. So
exactly, yeah.
Learn how to cook well, learn how to cook healthy food so that you live longer and you don't get sick. That's the other, this is like a payoff, so that if you eat well and you stay healthy, you won't spend a lot of money on medicine in the future, or go to hospital and spend heaps of money if you're not insured. So it's like an investment for the future, all these things that you can do now. People who are stuck at home, education, like we're talking to your students right now, but just imagine all of the people who had the opportunity to go and do distance learning now through all of COVID. They could have been studying and learning other things. So when everyone gets vaccinated and the doors open to tourists again, then they can do other things. The other thing is so cooking, repairs and maintenance. We aren't well known in the Pacific for being very good at that skill.
Yeah, true.
So people should be repairing their houses, painting them, making it so that you don't have big costs later because you neglected. So get on the roof, check if there's any rust there, rub it off, put the undercoat down, paint it. So it's like, you do maintenance on your body by eating well and doing exercise, but you got to take care of your buildings as well. So that's my suggestions on multi-skilling and not just being good at one thing, trying to be good at several things, so that if you need to, you can go and do something else. The one good thing about hotels is, and why a lot of hotels or tourism people in this COVID time, is they've been very resilient, and they've been able to use their skills that they learned from uni and in hotels to be able to do other things. Because they sat in meetings and they heard what other people were doing, they always picked up these little things that they could do later.
That's
awesome. How's that sound?
That's wonderful, Greg. Thank you so much. So yeah, our timing was well done. So that we covered most of it. Thank you so much for your word of advice, especially for many of our students. So we'll make a wrap of it. And thank you very much for taking your time. Would you like to make any other final comments?
Well, one of the points you had there was entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Do you want me to quickly touch on that?
Yes, please. Because most of them, I suggest, would eventually, or because of what of less of opportunities in the next 2 3 years, probably will go into small business, small micro enterprise. So probably that'll just be other final remark, if you could. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, entrepreneurship is a very exciting thing, and there are some very famous ones. So I'd suggest to your students that they use their research skills and reading skills and get out and read about Branson, who started Virgin, the company. The famous people that built these huge companies like Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, and many other successful businesses around the world, like cosmetic people, designers like yourself, and read their biographies. Read what they say you need to do to be successful. Like, I know one for sure, you have to be passionate about what you're going to do in business, because if you don't love it, you're not going to be enthusiastic, and you have to be enthusiastic for it to work well. Going back to working hard, we've mentioned working hard several times. You got to work hard and never give up if you want to be an entrepreneur. And don't be shy to ask questions. Like, a lot of students don't ask enough questions from people who've got experience like you and I, and they think it's being, you're being, this mandua feeling is the way to go. But you're not being a tall poppy person. You're just being smart. It's better to look like an idiot for 30 seconds and to be a kaidolo for 30 years and not know what you could have known from way back.
Exactly.
Definitely, we talked about a business plan. While you're at university, there are people who are fantastic at something. So learn what they're good at. So ask Dawn Gibson to help you learn how to write a great business plan, because it'll help you be successful and you won't go broke. You won't have do all this hard work and then there won't be any good result. And by going back to what we talked about, by being diversified and multi-skilling and, being good at music and dancing and the art and having a go at carpentry and gardening and all these things, when you're doing all these things, it helps you become creative. Like just recently, I've been helping an ice block manufacturer, a Brazilian guy who makes the best ice blocks in Fiji. And I noticed that they were throwing all the seeds away just after they were pulping the fruit, and all the seeds came out. Even me, as a retired guy, I worked out we've got to capture those seeds, clean them up, and go and put them in a nursery. And sure enough, we're now selling soursop, seedlings, passion fruit. So it's worked as another little idea that's making money. So that's it. Thanks, hubby.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you so much for finally summing that up. It's wonderful having you on board, and I'm sure I think I've got about 300 students in the region. They'll be very much inspired, and I'll also put up your slideshow that you worked on with the presentation. Thank you so much for everything, and I wish you all the best. Thank you much, Greg. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Good luck to all of them as well, and they can ask you questions to direct to me, and I'm happy to come back to you to pass it back to them.
Much appreciated. Thank you, Greg. Inaka.
All right. Mode.
Mode.